We are going to go ahead and get started on our 7 o'clock meeting, if I can pull the agenda. All right, we'd like to welcome everybody here today. It is Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. We're going to start with introductions. Julie, go ahead.
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn. Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hauber. Rich Nye.
And Nicole McDermott. All right. As far as introductions go, we'd like to quickly recognize if we have anybody from, we can start with GEA, because I know we have GEA here. Go ahead and stand up and introduce who you have with you.
So I'm Michelle Jones, GEA president. I have Karen Burns, who is our representative for EVA on the state education board for association board. And then Haley, who's a city board member.
He was wearing a fantastic sweatshirt. All right, thank you. Do we have anybody from our Granite Education Foundation here? Nobody, okay. Region 5 PTA. Oh, they are always there. They'll probably come later because that's when they usually do. GAEOP.
Hi, I'm Dana Breeze, president, and this is Ty Whiting. He is our representative for Elementary West and also helping with our social media this year.
Awesome, thank you, welcome. Do we have anybody from GESPA?
I'm Breezy, I'm acting GESPA president.
Thanks for being here. And middle managers, do we have any middle managers? All right, and I don't see any elected officials. Am I missing anybody? All right, thank you for being here. We're gonna go ahead and move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're gonna invite Ryan Shaw, who is the principal at Evergreen Junior High, to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll turn the time over to Ben.
And I will turn the time back over to Mr. Ryan Shaw to introduce our reverends for the evening. But while we do so, I invite the board and administration to come off the stand so that we can enjoy the performance.
Good evening. I would like to introduce the Evergreen Concert Choir to come on in. They are under the direction of our director, Mr. Mateo Kraus. We would like to thank him for all the hard work that he does at Evergreen, both with the concert choir, with the music orchestra, and the band. That we are also being accompanied by Capri Dolly. Yes, by Capri. She's going to be on the piano. She is our DLI teacher and does a great job at Evergreen. So we're excited to be here and showcase our tremendous talents that we have at Evergreen. And I will turn the time over to our director, Mr. Mateo Kraus, to introduce the two songs that we will be singing tonight.
Hello, I am Mateo Kraus. Like Mr. Shaw said, this is our concert choir. We'll be singing two numbers for you tonight. I like to provide a lot of voice and choice in our choirs. So one of the tunes that the students chose first on in the year is called Viva la Vida. So we'll be singing that tune. And then our second tune, they didn't really know this when I chose it, but it was to help introduce our school musical because that's kind of a big deal at Evergreen. So we'll be singing Step in Time from Mary Poppins. And that musical will take place in about mid-March, so come see us. meet you guys.
Parents, before you sneak out, will you just turn around and wave and tell everybody that you're their parents? Thank you for being here and supporting them. Thank you. All right. We are going to go ahead and move forward on our agenda. The next thing that we have up is actually our Good News Minute. This is something new for those of you who are listening in or joining us. We usually do a board report at the end of our meeting, but we wanted to try this out, be able to share some of the good things that we are doing in our schools, or that we see our schools doing, I guess. And so we're going to each take a minute, and Todd's going to be the timekeeper. I don't know. But we're going to try to take a minute and just highlight some of the activities and things that we've been able to see happen in our schools and in our district, just to celebrate them. So, Clark.
Sure, thank you. I will say there's a couple of great things that went on recently that I had the opportunity to be part of. One of them was the ribbon cutting for the teen center at Cottonwood High School. There's a couple of other teen centers in the state of Utah already. This is the first in our school district. It was great to be a part of that and see the student body officers there at Cottonwood introduce that to the community and to the administration and to us that were there. A fantastic facility and a fantastic opportunity that will provide some great resources to some students. The last one that I'll mention is I had the chance to be part of a community meeting where Rich and his counterpart from the Salt Lake School District basically were asked questions as a panel about our school district, about our community, about our students, about the challenges that we face in this day and age of educating students. And I appreciated many of the words that Rich and his counterpart from Salt Lake mentioned. Particularly, I just wanted to make note of the great opportunity that Rich emphasized for our students, that they have the greatest opportunity that they've ever had for personalized education opportunities. So I thought that was worth mentioning to this group. Thank you.
Karen.
Am I next?
You're next.
Okay. All right, I'm going to make this quick. I have 3 celebrations I wanted to mention. I have had the opportunity almost every week to go to Thank You Thursdays. This is where the foundation, or Granite Education Foundation, goes around and surprises a teacher. And it's been so fun because it's east-west. It's gotten me into schools I don't normally visit. And so super fun to walk in and just surprise teachers. Teachers who are doing phenomenal work out there. Super fun to surprise them. Second is I was able to volunteer at one of my precinct's food pantry, and it was such a wonderful but very humbling experience to interact with families who just need a little bit of extra help to put food on the table for dinner. So happy to help out a little bit there. And my last thing is just community councils are forming. I'm grateful for all the parents who are willing to step up and give their volunteer time to that. We had a gentleman visit one last night, and it was his first time, and he ended up chair. And he was fine. He was like, okay, I will learn. I want to volunteer. All these parents always complain, but look around the table. Where are they? And so it was fascinating to hear just from him his new perspective and the new excitement to serve. So for all of our community council people, thanks. Did I do it? Did I go over?
Okay. Chris, go.
Okay, I'm so worried about 1 minute. All right, I just want to highlight 2 events I got to attend. The first one was the shop-a-thon that GEF coordinates with Discover Card and Kohl's for kids, and Connie was also there with me, and I didn't get to shop with a student because I had to leave a little bit early, but I got to be a bagger, and so I got to interact with several students as they were shopping for their families, well, for them, but a lot of them mentioned that they wanted to pick out things for their families too, which was so sweet. But if you've never attended this, it's a great coordination of efforts. It's restaurants and Salt Lake Community College and different vendors that come together and provide clothing, the kids get to pick out their clothing from Kohl's, and then they can get some services there for vision and dental and all kinds of great things, and they get a backpack and a coat, and it's just really heartwarming that it's such a great coordination of that GEF is the kind of can put together such a fantastic event. Michelle Jones was there volunteering, and some of our other Excel winners, which was so neat to see them giving back. Also, the second thing I want to mention is we were invited to Inclusion Day at Hunter High School. Nicole attended, and some of our assistant superintendents, and it is the Unified Sports Program. And if you don't know what that is, that's the special needs kids that get to do. This was track and field, so they got to do 5 events, and they had opening ceremonies and sing the national anthem and take the oath of the athlete, and it is incredibly heartwarming. If you can ever go to that, I encourage other board members to go. It's so fun to see these students excited that they get to do something that they've watched other students do. So it was great to be a part of that, and grateful for those schools that invited us to help with those efforts and watch these kids do some really fun things. So that's me.
Connie.
Well, I can say amen to everything because I wanted to mention the Teen Center. They have all new appliances and it's beautiful. So it is truly a nice place for those teens who need, don't have a home or don't feel comfortable, and they can come and just enjoy a study session and a place to study. I went out to the shop-a-thon, and to see the kids excited and shy, this was something that was new for them. Thank You Thursdays are always fun, where principals are able to give an employee there at the school just an extra attention, and I've really enjoyed those.
Thanks. Kim?
Thank you. So I have had the opportunity to watch our junior high boys soccer teams play, which has been really fun to see. And Matheson has an undefeated record so far this year. They have another game tomorrow. If they win, they'll be in the championships. So we hear a lot about our high school sports all the time, but not always about our junior highs, and I think that was really fun to see. Monroe had a 50th birthday event. That was a really fun community event they put on, and put a lot of effort into that. A lot of people turned out, and so that was good to be there. One of my highlights of that evening, funnily enough, was I got to see a limited edition Firefighter 911 Harley Davidson. One of only 1,000 that were built, so that was pretty cool. And then Constitution Day activities, just thank you to those schools and teachers who had me in their classes and let me participate with them. That was really fun to see the activities that they held, and younger kids sometimes have a harder time understanding what it's all about, but teachers come up with fun ways to engage them anyway. And drawing, I have a picture of the Statue of Liberty I drew in one of the classes at home still. So thank you to all those who were willing to have me there. So thank you.
Okay, Jill.
At Skyline High and also at Oakwood Elementary, we have 2 just really awesome community councils there who noticed that they had some great ideas for ways to keep their students safer in their safe walking routes. And so they coordinated both with us and with Mill Creek City and Holiday City, respectively. And both of those cities, in collaboration with those community councils, have taken action to resolve the issues. And I just love seeing that kind of collaboration between us, our parents, and our cities. And I really appreciate those collaborations, both with the community councils and with our great cities. And so I really wanted to celebrate that today.
Thanks, Julie. I just wanted to highlight one that Chris and I were able to go to the Hunter High School football game where they honored Karen Main. We all know Karen has been a great advocate for education, both just as a person in our community, somebody who's worked in our schools as well as a senator, and we appreciate and want to recognize her. It was very, very neat to be part of that, where they named the stadium at Hunter High School after Karen, and got to meet her family. So just wanted to say thanks to her and to her family, the amazing people that they are, and the advocates for education that they have been. So thank you. All right. Todd will give us all a report after.
We do want the report, because we got to get good at 1 minute.
You didn't hear it buzzing?
I can't hear it.
Julie, you were 30 seconds. I can tell you that because you did phenomenal.
That's a record.
I was 2 minutes, so sorry.
All right. I don't see any elected officials, so we're going to move on from there. I don't believe we have any patron participation, and so we will move from there. So the next thing that we have up is our consent items. We've had several days to look over these, ask questions, and make sure we understand everything that's on the consent agenda. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion, questions?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
So we'll once again be voting no on the consent agenda, but there's items on here that are same items we talked about 2 weeks ago, same reasons that I would not vote for them. So specifically, we're talking about Lexia and I-Ready Math and things like that on the agenda. So just consistent with my vote 2 weeks ago. And Stacy, if you don't mind recording that. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a quick comment on the graduation schedule? There's just want to note that there is a change for Cottonwood High School in that they'll be going up to the Huntsman Center for this graduating class of 2024. That's a big change for that community, which has hosted its own graduation for a very, very long time, well, forever, essentially. So setting aside kind of some of my personal feelings about that, I want to make sure that the public's aware that that I think there's a desire to support many different constituencies in that change, and hopefully it will be a good thing in the end, but it's also not necessarily permanent, so it can be changed back if that's a direction that the school community wishes to go after giving this a shot up at the Huntsman Center.
Thanks, Clark. I too share some consternation in that respect, but this is about the students, and the students that's what's important to them. So I feel like it is important for us to be able to offer those students that opportunity, and it is true, it's not permanent, but thank you.
There's also a change for Taylorsville that have always, or
Taylorsville and
Cypress.
yeah, and Cypress. But Taylorsville and Cypress now will be at the Maverick Center rather, and graduate the day before, so the 23rd of May, because of just having to have another day to graduate them.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you, motion passes. We will move on to our information item. Patrick, and invite Patrick up. Patrick, while he's coming up, is going to be giving us just a staffing report. This is a report that we've requested as a board to give us an idea of how things are going as far as being fully staffed, or how we're looking as far as the beginning of the year and having hired people that we need to. So go take it away.
Well, good evening. Happy to be here with you, good members of the board and members of the superintendency. Look forward to sharing the next few minutes with you. Consistent with what we've done.
I just wanted to say in advance, thank you. It's like October 3rd and you're presenting to us. And I'm assuming these are numbers from October 1st?
Well, these are numbers that I pulled from the end of September, first part of October.
Well, just
so
thanks
I had
for
to have
that.
it all ready by
Just
Friday.
wanted to recognize that timing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
Just take it, Patrick.
that's a good point. It feels like the year just started But before you know it, turn around twice and say Bob's your uncle, and we're going to be at the end of the school year already looking to staff for next year. Anyway, I'm happy to be here, and like we've done in years past, here to give a 1,000-foot view of the staffing to get a feel for where we're at. This slide here just goes over how our applicants have indicated that they've learned about Granite District jobs. And you'll notice that I won't go through each one of these, but our top one is our website. We strive to make sure that that has accurate information, most up-to-date information we can. As soon as those new salary schedules came out, boy, I'll tell you what, that was so important to get that out. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in just a bit. Another important one is the word of mouth, the tell a friend, tell a family member. And we still have folks that are participating in the employee referral program that has been so helpful to fill some of those hard to fill positions that we find. Of course, our commercial job boards, we post in more than just one place. We'll put stuff up on Workforce Services site, Indeed, and we use Handshake as well, which is a platform that our universities will use to try and get information out to students that are tied to the universities. I want to focus first with what we now are calling educational support professional, ESPs. So when you see ESP now, you'll know what that means. We used to call them our classified, but now they're known as our ESPs. So we have filled 1,903 contract and hourly ESP positions since April 1st. And I include April 1st because that's really when we began in full swing trying to prepare for the upcoming school year. That means that, so I say unique individuals on that the bottom number, 1,580 unique individuals, because there may be some individuals that take on a couple different roles. I may have, say, an office clerk position, and I'm fulfilling a recess aide position. Those would be 2 hourly ESP positions that you might have. So I thought those numbers would be good for you to take a look at. How exciting to have been able to invite 1,903, well, actually 1,580 unique individuals into the Granite family since April 1st. I just wanted to highlight some things that have been really helpful. I have some quantitative data or numbers that we'll go over, but I thought it'd be fun to share some qualitative, just really quick with your permission, some qualitative data as well, some feedback from our administrators who have spent the last several months hiring. I do want to be very specific and highlight the decision made by the Granite Board of Education to increase salaries for this fiscal year has had a very positive influence on our ability to not only retain, but to attract applicants to our ESP positions. We are very competitive with our surrounding districts, more so now than we have in years past. I wanted to share just a few comments made from administrators that have been passed along to me over the last several months. From Dr. Dave Gaddy out at Transportation, he said, "It's been amazing. We've been flooded with calls. Many of them have bus driving credentials already. We have so many that we have aligned to take contracts." And this is in response to the change in the wages that were made this past spring and summer. Robin Tenbrink from Kennedy Junior High, the principal there, said, "We went from having 0 paraeducators to having 4 paraeducators. I definitely think there's been a difference with this pay jump." Andrew McMillan out at Monroe Elementary said, "We had one of our very best sweepers return back to GSD due to the pay bump. That was very exciting for Monroe. I will say the bump did boost our secretary and custodian. They were happy to be included in an increase this year." It's hard to capture what the numbers or quantify the numbers of people who were considering leaving but stayed. But multiple principals have made that comment. And so I felt like it's good, even though I can't really quantify that because they didn't make that move ultimately. I wanted you to be aware that several stayed because of these pay bumps. Brandon Moore, out at the principal out at Frost Elementary, I've seen the impact of the pay raise both in recruiting new paras, and the most important aspect in my book is retaining the good paras we already have in our building. I can tell you that 2 of my 29-hour-a-week paras have decided to stay because of the pay raise. I was also able to hire 2 additional paras this summer because of it. I'd like to think I've built a culture at Frost that attracts people, but without a question, the pay raise has been a tremendous help. I'll go through just a couple more, if you'll allow me. Dana Adams, and boy, I tell you what, talking about just working to make sure our kids get a chance to eat at the chow hall, right? She does a great job. But she said, after the new pay scales were posted, we highlighted the starting wage on our posting, which closed yesterday, and we received 16 applications, more than we've received in a long time. Well, actually, if you take all together the previous 2 years, it was more than those postings. So it was good news. And then finally, we'll stop here with Mr. Rex Gowdy, Director of Maintenance and Administrative Service Department. He said, we've seen a big upswing in custodial over the last month, which I expected. Word travels fast, especially from district to district. And we've had a chance to pick off a few from surrounding districts, which is great. Over the last 10 years, we've not had a full custodial rover crew. We have hired 2 rovers since. We only have 2 positions left to hire to have full staff. I believe we will achieve that soon. I've also seen a big increase in applicants and hires for custodians at our school locations. So I just wanted to share a couple of those comments. Those are hard to build into the numbers that we're going to go over, but I want you to know that those are comments that are shared with me from our principals.
I just want to say too that we're so thrilled. These retention, these hiring numbers are, it's so good to hear this because we know how much we've needed this. I also just want to make sure and say that I think that we also hope that our employees who've been with us, all of this time are feeling a burden off their shoulders from that extra money, and that was important to us too. So we hope that they are feeling a little lighter from having, that remuneration too. I just want to make sure and say it's about them too,
Yeah, good point, and point well taken. I have to imagine that message has been sent and heard loud and clear. At least I hope so. I wanted to go over these are just a few of our ESP new hires and transfer numbers. You'll notice that first column goes over the position. Then we cover how many we've hired in those positions since April 1st. And then postings that are still up or ongoing. And our hourly substitute pool has grown considerably this year. When you look at the last numbers that I pulled, as far as our successfully filled rate goes, we're higher than what we've been in years past. I attribute that to a pay increase that they experienced. It is also early in the year, but when you can compare it to the same time of the years in the years past, we're still a lot higher. So we were in the 90s as far as the successful fill rate at this point.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask was, do you know what our fail to fill averages each day?
Well, so we monitor that each day. The last time, so I pulled it at the end of last week. In the last week of September, throughout the whole week, we were in the low 90s as far as successful fill rate.
Yeah. How does it compare to prior years?
Much better. So if we go back to, I could go back and get those numbers, but we were like 2 years ago, off the top of my head, we were right around the 80s, even dipping into the 70s. I could go back and get those numbers. I had pulled them a couple years back to share the dire circumstance that we felt we were in at that time. But I could revisit that if you'd like down the road.
We also have to recognize that was through COVID.
Right, no,
That was like the big instigator of that is, people either who were quarantining or they, were sick or whatever. So that they got really hard.
No, and Karen, you're saying out loud what inside my head I think what we all know and recognize and we're thinking, that was difficult, that COVID. I also kind of knock on wood and hope that by saying it, we don't bring it back. So, all right. A couple of the maybe positive numbers to celebrate, the good news, if you will. Our paraeducators, if you look right now, at least this was as of last week, we had 7 postings that we still needed to fill. If we compare that to last year, where were we at the same time when I was giving this presentation? We had 18 that needed to be filled. Now, I don't know if we can really read too much into that, other than the fact that it seems as though we're able to hire a little bit easier with the salary. You can see that we've hired 296. At this point last year, we'd hired 231. So we'd hired less, and we still had more that we needed to pick up. Couple others that I think are interest, special ed para. Similarly, this time last year we had 40 that we still needed to pick up. We're at 16. Are we at the land and milk and honey yet? No, we're ahead there, but we still have a little ways to go. But your efforts to increase that pay has been wonderful, and this year we feel like we're in a better spot than we've been years past. Here's a few more to highlight. Perhaps a couple here that we might look at as custodial. Last year we were in need of quite a few more. What was it? This year we ended up hiring 8 custodians, head custodians. Last year we were looking at 40 head custodians. To me, that's a possibility that we were having a hard time retaining folks. Maybe we're losing them to other districts. And this year, perhaps we haven't had as big a need to fill because of the folks that have decided to stay with us. Bus drivers as well, like what we heard from Dr. Gaddy, they feel like they're in a much better position, even hiring some of the rover contract positions for bus drivers that they haven't in years past. And then Dana talking about her nutrition service workers, we've hired 67 of those. I know that that's always a need, but when you look at our the managers that we still have left to hire, we have 2 contract positions that were posted last week that we're looking to fill, but beyond that, those contract positions seem to be all right.
Do these numbers include all of the positions that school community councils have tried to fund and weren't able to hire?
So you're asking about like something funded through trust lands?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are those positions. Okay. Yeah. Many times schools will hire like a para with those trust lands funds, and so when we post, that's included in these numbers. These are all those hires that we've done since April 1st.
Okay. And maybe it's just time of year. It just sounded like I heard a lot of that same theme where we wanted to hire but we couldn't. Wanted to hire but we couldn't. So the numbers feels higher than just 7. So.
Yeah. Well, so what I will say, so those were numbers that we had posted as of the end of last week that needed to, that doesn't encapsulate or capture if a community council was talking about, hey, maybe we'd like to use our trust lands, could we do this? If it hasn't been posted yet or submitted by the principal, that's not something we would have posted yet. Yeah. All right. I wanted to just highlight a couple of these ESP recruiting efforts. We have had a huge focus on the local job fairs. We've already done 3 of them up to this point, specifically for ESPs, and some of our middle manager positions traveled down to Provo and done an all-day one down there as well. We'll be heading tomorrow to Salt Lake Community College for their job fair. These are not necessarily teacher focused, but these are our ESP focused. So we've really tried to focus on that. We've some additional things that we've done in the summer. I know I had one of my administrators participate in a parade, which was fun, and we actually get folks that are interested in, and we've been able to hire some folks off those efforts. We adjust and align the requirements for some of our hard-to-fill ESP positions. So we try to be flexible there while still maintaining the integrity of what the requirement is of the job. The para and hourly sub grow your own efforts. Kind of excited about some of those efforts. So we've had about 76 of our subs/paras that have loved their experience in the classroom so much that they've been inspired to pursue a teaching degree and get their bachelor's degree. Some of them have an associate's already, or maybe had a bachelor's, but it wasn't in teaching. And they've taken advantage of this Grow Your Own program that the HR department works with Lynn Rada and her department to get the news out in the spring. And these folks have a couple of years where they get some additional help and money to go towards those teaching programs. And so we're excited to see 76 of our folks that are taking steps to get the professional teaching license. We'll move on just really quickly to get give you a feel for our teacher applicant that we tend to see for this past school year. We had 793 applicants. In comparison, there were 1,192. So that was last year, and this year we've got the 1,192 applicants for the 23-24 school year. And then when you look at secondary, we had 1,060 applicants for this school year, comparing that to the 917 separate applicants from the previous year. We've hired our teachers from all over the state of Utah, from all the different universities up and down the state. We spent a good deal of time recruiting those. One of the focuses is to, as a Granite School District, to own our own backyard and focus on those universities that are close by. Try and find those teachers, those gems hidden throughout. Let's see. There's also folks from out of state that we have come in. And then there's a few that are not quite, they don't have that professional license, but participating in the Apple program. We'll go over those numbers in just a second. We are experiencing a shortage where we tend to see some, at least this hiring season, where we've seen a real maybe dearth of already licensed individuals is the special ed teachers, which is a continuation of something that we've seen for years and years. And then our CTE teachers. And CTE, for those of you that may not be aware, is the career and technical education, where they focus on 21st century academic and technical skills. Some of the classes that we're looking for teachers currently would be digital literacy, family and consumer services, industrial arts, and tech education. And for those positions, we're going even outside our regular frontline advertisement of those positions, and we're really scrambling with universities, reaching out. Do you have any students that might be able to fill these positions, going out in the industry? I know James Taylor and Sandy are working hard with their connections, and they're very well connected in the state of Utah to try and leverage those connections to try and pull folks in. And then so doing everything we can to try and meet those needs and the shortage. But this year, that's what we're seeing a shortage in. Here's our elementary and preschool numbers. We filled 216 openings during this hiring season, compared to the 196 from the year before. Some of that could be from this is last year at ESSER, so some schools may be choosing to use the last year of those soft funds to try and bring in some additional FTE to lower class sizes or other. Secondary, here's those numbers there. We filled 152 secondary teacher openings compared to the 188 from the year before. This gives just an idea of teacher experience. So out of the 369 teachers that we've hired this hiring season for both elementary and secondary, 212 are new to the profession, and 157 come to us with experience. That kind of continues the theme that we see. Teachers value not only our competitive wages, but the benefits that we offer here at Granite School District. We're able to recognize up to 10 years of teaching experience, licensed teaching experience in other districts, and place on up to step 11. And that's helpful as we are able to then potentially grab teachers that have experience from surrounding districts. And there were 157 of those this past hiring season. This breaks it down by degrees that our teachers have. You'll see the majority, of course, come with their bachelor's degree. Of course, we place value in the level of education, the idea being that as we get a chance to continue on in our education, it helps sharpen us as tools, as educators, to be more prepared to meet the needs of the students. That's the assumption anyway. Does it always play out that way? Well, maybe not so much, but we like to believe that, that by going after these the additional learning and degrees, that we are more prepared as a teacher corps to meet the needs of our students. Here are, so we have a total of 36 secondary teachers that are in what's known as the APPLE program, or the Alternative Licensing Program that the district has. This number is down actually from the last couple of years, which perhaps is a good sign, meaning these are teachers that have a bachelor's degree at the very least and have gone through the associate to get the associate's license, but don't have a professional license yet. So they haven't gone through a traditional teaching program. And so they'll have the next 3 years to work on and secure that professional teaching license. And so they'll be taking classes, pedagogical classes and content classes to get everything ready so they can have that teaching license. 8 of those are from our elementary school, and then we have 13 special ed hires that are part of that alternative program. Now, just a slight little caveat here, special ed, they go through the state. So all special ed folks that don't have that license yet, they won't come through the district to earn that license. They do go through the state, but we help them get them there. So we work with them on that process.
Can I ask the dual immersion ones, the two, are those the native speakers? Okay.
Yeah. These are the current vacancies that we have right now. And we just went through the staffing readjustment, so we looked to see which schools came in close to those staffing numbers at the elementary. And after all the dust settled, we had 16 vacancies that we're looking to fill. They've already been posted, and we're actually feeding those applicants to the principals on a daily basis. So could even be a couple of these that have already been hired since Friday.
So these 16 are vacancies that, because of the October 1st numbers, we're realizing, oh, we need more students than we projected.
Right.
I mean, we have more students than we projected. And so this would be above and beyond, say that I'm a school who projected more students and I had less, and now I have to surplus a teacher. Those teachers have all been placed.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
And now we have 16 more that we're trying to hire for.
Correct.
Okay, and it looked like, if I recall, looking back on how many applicants that you had, I guess that, sorry, I'm thinking aloud, I can tell.
No, that's fine. I'll join you.
Lots of those teachers who did not get a job with us probably have already been placed somewhere else where they applied. So it's not like that pool of applicants is still available to us at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good insight and question, Julie. So at the beginning of any hiring season in the spring, we tend to have very deep pools of applicants that are qualified. When we start getting towards the end of the summer, you'll see that those pools over time have decreased. That's because a lot of applicants apply to multiple districts. They do so because they know only the select few, the elite, get into Granite, and perhaps they may have to settle in another district, like I did for 10 years. But eventually I was able to make it.
Same, Patrick.
So you'll notice the little note down here, teaching vacancies that occur between now and semester and all subject area grades will likely be filled with associate educator license candidates. So when we put those up, at the beginning of the year, we say you need to have a professional license, and that's the standard that we're looking at because we have deep pools. But at this point in the year, we're concerned that there may not be a lot of folks left that have that professional license. And so if we keep that posting requirement that way and we don't adjust it, we may end up screening out everybody that doesn't have a professional license, which may mean that we're left with 1 or 2 people in the pool. And I don't want to say this part out loud, but perhaps sometimes those that are still left at this point in the season we may want some other options as well. We may want a deeper pool. And so this, by adjusting that posting requirement, that allows our principals to have access to a few other people that may not have been able to consider. And the nice thing is we have the Apple program, which is a very quality Apple program when you look at what other districts are doing that help teachers to get to that professional license. And so those folks will be offered those same supports and services.
Thanks.
Yeah. Collective efforts. This is just a nod to those by the Granite Board. I know you guys work closely as well with the Granite Education Association, and during those negotiations, very positive influence in our ability to recruit teachers. Our salary and benefit package settlement is competitive, and you guys have stood by and really made that happen, and it helps us to be able to compete with a limited commodity, which is a qualified licensed teacher. The 2.5% COLA, the health clinic, the support that you guys give there. You heard a lot of positive things about the increased teacher prep time at the beginning of the year with those legislative days that the board was willing to consider and use. So a lot of these things, some of them may not have been the recruiting tool, because a new teacher wouldn't even probably know what a legislative day is. But for those veteran teachers that are in the district, boy, oh boy, do they know what that is.
And in other districts who see Granite off all the time.
Oh, is that right? but they know what that is, and the value that can be there. And so I think that helps communicate to our employees, to our teachers, hey, we value you, we've heard you, and here's some prep time for you. So some of the recruiting efforts, like I had mentioned, the Grow Your Own, we've got 76 that have participated in that hopefully will end up being teacher applicants for us down the road. We've already begun our teacher recruiting efforts. Have had some events at local universities that we've done, and we're already getting out and seeing our student teachers, our interns. So it's kind of crazy to think, but by the end of October, we start looking at possibly considering open contracts for the following year for those individuals that are just knockout and we have to have type teacher. We're just working our tail ends off in many different ways to try and make sure that we can bring in the best and brightest. And that's not just the folks in the HR office, but the good folks that support our efforts, who by word of mouth will share how a person can benefit by coming to Granite and teaching here. Anyway, that concludes my comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to chat. But if not, it's sure been a real pleasure to see your smiling faces and visit with you this evening.
I was hoping you could provide some context around the numbers for the teacher hires. Some elementary were higher, secondary were lower this year.
Mm-hmm.
What's the context around that? Do we just have fewer positions to fill? Why would that number drop?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and that's the best guess that I can make is on those elementary with an increase. I'm wondering if it might be that ESSER money that we're looking to spend that schools have set aside, recognizing it's last year. In those numbers, it also includes one-year only positions that would be funded through soft funding, whether that be ESSER, TSSA, trust lands. So that could be part of the reason you see an increase at elementary. It also, the other one that possibly plays in there is the change in kindergarten. And so the state kicks in half FTE for every full day kindergarten, and we kick in the other half. So now, if you see how that works out in kindergarten, that results in more kindergarten teacher hires, or FTE at least for us, because the state's kicking in that half FTE there. So that could play into it as well.
I wanted to ask a question about, you said that we were looking for, we were seeing a SPED shortage and also a CTE shortage.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just such unique programs that it feels like that's something where we can, have some sort of impact on working conditions, and that we could attract people based on the conditions that we set. So I'm wondering if there have been conversations between administration and like Dr. Day, or I can't remember who is our CTE.
James Taylor.
Yeah, James
Yeah.
now. Not now. We have a new
Oh.
principal. That's what I was thinking. But you're
Oh,
right.
okay.
It would be James Taylor. To just talk about creative. I mean, in CTE, I know we're already working really hard to try to attract people from industry so that they can, am I correct, keep their jobs
You'll
and
have-
still
Absolutely.
for
In
us.
fact, I know I've worked, and so has Brenda Burns, closely with Sandy, James, Bryce, and Leslie Bell. And Leslie, I don't know if you wanted to be able to speak to some of those efforts.
Right. Right now, currently, Bryce is working with universities to try and get more recruits within there and trying to have them student teach within our classrooms to help, retain them, like recruit and retain them in our system.
I know I personally went with Bryce, was it last year, to visit with Westminster folks in that program to see about, hey, could we create some sort of a pipeline for special ed to have them come in and do an internship type of experience while they're doing their student teaching.
Well, and I know that Bryce has also traveled with Patrick out of state to
Yeah.
try and recruit out-of-state teachers as well. I think our industry problem is that we're competing with industry wages. And a lot of times, it's hard, we can't compete with what they can get in industry. So that's one of our biggest challenges, is how do we compensate them? I mean, we can't compensate them. So we're basically appealing to their heart to come teach for us, or it's a part-time job.
Well, I think that the SPED discussion is fresh on my mind because we just talked with Dr. Day about his thoughts of how to kind of rearrange the way SPED is working. And to me, it's a good opportunity to say, and by the way, how does this impact recruiting?
Good.
And are there small little tweaks that we can make that would really make a teacher, a SPED teacher from another district go, oh, that's what I want over there. That's my philosophy, or my, because for me, I'm going to the district where they have my same philosophy, where they're going to support my philosophy, especially if I'm a SPED teacher, So just some thoughts.
No,
Thanks for
thank
the
you.
discussion.
No, thank you for sharing, Julie.
All right, any other thoughts, discussion, questions? All right, thanks, Patrick, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Appreciate your smiling face here, too. That's right. All right, we are going to go ahead and turn the time over to Doug Larson. We have first readings and second readings tonight.
Good evening, board members. We have a bunch of policies tonight. First readings, we have two. First one is religious beliefs, expression, and exemptions. The need for this policy came about because of, the modification to our existing policy. Our existing religious expressions policy came about because of two new statutes that were passed. And this policy was written up, it was reviewed by Law and Policy. There were some suggestions that were made by Law and Policy members, two of which were stylistic and one was substantive. And I'll just point you to the substantive one for now. We, as Law and Policy, are still discussing the definition of school activity and whether or not we should maintain that in the policy, or whether we should we should change it back to language that's actually more consistent with the statute. That conversation is ongoing, and we'll bring that issue back to the full board next month. However, for now, I'll recommend the policy as written, and be happy to answer any further questions that the board might have.
Any other thoughts, questions?
I guess I have a question about how that works. If we approve a first reading, but then still completely open for changes that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so the changes that we've been talking about, again, two of them are whether we include some references. They're really quite stylistic in nature. But the Law and Policy Committee wanted to have some additional conversation, and I can detail that conversation with you the next board meeting. And so we just wanted to have that conversation as a committee prior to bringing that to the board. But for now, I guess this would be subject to a first reading, conditioned upon that conversation for next month's second reading.
So can I just suggest that either we discuss those changes now or we don't take any action with respect to a first reading this evening and reserve that for the next meeting when all of the information is provided?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about them. So right now, the substantive change, we have a definition of school activity. And the definition of school activity includes programs, events, or assignments that are sponsored or endorsed by the school district. In the statute, the language is, and you'll help me with this, Kim, but it is
Any aspect of school.
any aspect of school. I personally have a slight concern about that language because it might have some unintended consequences. But again, we hadn't necessarily had the opportunity as a Law and Policy Committee to fully vet the pros and cons of both of those. So I'm happy to kind of give you my thinking on the pros and cons. If we, as one member of the Law and Policy Committee pointed out, we probably ought to be consistent with state statute, which I absolutely agree with. However, the concern that I have is that the language used in the state statute is overly broad and would probably or could possibly lead to unintended consequences. And therefore, I wanted to make that the definition of school activity a little bit more certain, specific. Yeah, is the best way of saying it.
So do you have a different definition than what we're seeing here, or is
So
this?
the suggestion is, especially if you go over, Clerk, to the second page, instead of it saying, where do you find one? Yeah, D. So under Utah state law, students, D, well, just right under D, under Utah state law, students shall not be required to participate in any school activity. Instead, the suggestion is to any aspect of school that is contrary to students and or parents' religious beliefs. And it was also suggested right there to put in students' parents' religious beliefs, correct? Is that?
That's right. That was a stylistic change that we had talked
Beliefs
about.
or rights, which is consistent also with the state statute. Of conscience, therefore, parents may waive student participation. Anyway, instead of any place where it's saying school activity, instead saying any aspect of school.
And the only reason.
That's what I'm understanding, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And the member of Law and Policy is absolutely correct that aspect of school is what is included in the state statute. The problem with that is that it doesn't define what aspect of school, any aspect of school is in state statute. And so we're left trying to understand what that actually means. And there's a possibility that that could mean a whole lot of things that we don't necessarily intend it to mean. So if a student wants to opt out, for example, of a certain assignment or some curriculum or an activity or things like that, that's clearly contemplated. If the student wants to opt out of,
I'll tell you one that I thought of. If a parent's, and I know this seems outlandish, but there are parents who I can see doing this, where they would say, my child is tardy to every class. Well, but my child, due to their religious beliefs, should be able to be tardy to every class. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but if that's any aspect of school, you could pull that in and say, okay, that's an aspect of school.
yeah.
Well,
And again, we're not just talking about religious beliefs, but you could also tie that or any similar example to rights of conscience as well, right? I don't,
But I'd argue that's a school activity too. Targets could be a school.
But when it's defined as school activity means any program, event, or assignment that is sponsored or endorsed by the school. And I would even be okay saying any aspect of school pertaining to a program, event, or assignment, because
oh, yeah, maybe that's a better way of
that's where we can
handling it.
include that part of the state statute and have that well-defined. Going back and looking at the state statute, it's true, they do not define any aspect of school. That's not part of any of their definition. They have two definitions on there, and that's not part of it, which I guess I just think, I'm thinking like a junior high teacher.
As was I.
I can see, because I've seen parents do this, that will excuse behavior, and they may fall back on this if we leave it very vague. So that's where I guess I just have a little bit of a, I am okay saying any aspect of school pertaining to programs, events, or assignments, but not leaving it open to anything, because that might be a little bit broad.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say I think that the legislation was intentionally broad and not defined to limit it to certain things, so that if there is any aspect of school that violates the right of conscience, that they can waive that requirement. I mean, I think that it was purposely done that way, so I don't think it was vague unintentionally, put it that way. And I think the example you gave, well, sure, but so could a parent say that about an assignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they could do that there as well. I mean, I don't think, though, that we can not follow the law because parents might misuse it. I mean, rights of conscience are guaranteed under our state constitution, so.
It would be interesting to me to know what the writers of that state statute, what that was intended, what any aspect of school was intended, if they truly did mean any aspect. And I understand, like, I mean, we already make concessions for people, you know, who have anxiety and, okay, they can leave 5 minutes early to get to class so that they don't have to worry about hallway or, you know, things like that, where we work with a student on a case-by-case basis. But for them just to pull it out and just say, straight across, look, it's there, we can do whatever, just kind of makes me a little, it just gives me a little bit of
I would speculate that there are certain state requirements, such as attendance, that this might come in conflict with if that was truly the intent of the legislature.
And I don't want to get hung up on that one example. I think there's lots of other examples that you can think of. Rights of conscience. If a student argues against, dress code, using the restroom, not doing things. There are things that we would consider to be things that would not be disruptive to the school environment. And if a student wanted to use a right of conscience as an excuse for that, I think we might come into conflict. So anyway, that was my only thinking on it. I actually do agree, though, that there is. Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon.
I've been waiting. Well, I think my question's probably going to go more to Rich, but from being married to a former legislator and laws are passed, there's a lot that goes on after a law is passed. And Rich, you can maybe speak to this because, okay, so you have the state pass something and then it goes to different people to try to then define what that means to them. And so that's essentially what we're doing. We're not trying to not follow the law. We're taking this law and we're saying, okay, what does this mean to our district? And so I don't have any problem with specifying school activity. If we want to reword it, like Nicole said, as long as we put some specificity, then I'm okay saying, what's the phrase you like, Kim, the impact? No,
any aspect,
impact aspect, whatever. Anyway, so can you speak, Rich, to kind of the process once the state, and then there's the state statute, and then other people come in, and can you walk us through that a little bit? Because that might provide some helpful context. And we're not working around the law, we're trying to follow the law, but specific to what that means to our district.
So just, actually a question. Has the State Board of Education taken this up in rule yet?
No.
And as such, and that segues, the Utah State Board of Education will take what's passed in legislation becomes law, right, state statute, and then their rulemaking authority, which has the effect of law, tries to capture what the intent is of the legislation by giving some additional definition, clarification, and/or intent language. So generally, any rule writer or policy writing involves some degree of interpretation of what is intended behind certain words, particularly in legislation in this particular case. And so I think in terms of a follow-up, we are still waiting for the State Board of Education to take this up in their rulemaking authority, because the law that was passed actually requires them to do that.
Yeah.
It's a shall, not a may.
Correct.
And so the Utah State Board of Education shall create rule around right of conscience, and we are still waiting on that, which will provide greater insight around intent, around what their expectations are, given their position for the general control and supervision of public education in the state.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So are we ahead? Are we ahead of waiting for state? Are we trying to?
And actually, that's a great point, Chris. And to Kim's point earlier, I think perhaps maybe we should remain consistent and try not to get out ahead of the interpretation.
It's a yes and though, right?
Yeah.
So the bill passes with an implementation date.
Right.
That we are beholden to, irrespective at times. We can't look to the State Board of Education and say, you haven't written rule on this, we're not going to follow it yet.
Right.
So
we have to do we have action we have to take, but yet.
Yes,
we're
and
gonna probably revisit
if a
this.
parent before this policy ends up being passed, if a parent or student comes to a principal and says, hey, I've got issue with X, Y, and Z, we're going to abide by that. This is putting in the narrative and the guardrails in how we operationalize that. So we're beholden to the law on the date that the law requires it to be implemented, and at times though it's chicken, egg, cart, horse. Okay. What comes first? And in this case, yeah, we can go down this road before the state board actually takes action. We just also need to be cognizant of the fact that two things: one, that they will, but then two, we're still beholden to upholding the law.
And I would also say that law and policy could, we haven't had an opportunity necessarily to fully have this discussion that we're having currently. And law and policy may have a better recommendation coming out of another law and policy meeting that's scheduled for this upcoming month. If you'd rather wait for a proposal from law and policy, then you can do that as well. It's entirely up to the board how they want to handle it.
I recommend that we wait and let law and policy decide if they're going to bring it back to us here or not.
Does that need to be a motion?
To table it would need to be a motion, yes. And we could, if you wanted to do it, if you still wanted to do a first reading tonight, you could still do a first reading pending the proposal or the recommendation of law and policy, or we could just table it for next month.
And to be clear also, we don't have to do just 2 readings. We could do 3 readings if we so choose.
Right.
So, if we need to discuss it further, but.
Oh, I motion that we table it.
Seconded.
Right. There's been a motion to table. Hang on, let me get over there. Article 5C5, religious belief expression exemptions until next meeting. Any further discussion, questions?
I have a question on the timing. What's the implementation date?
Effective May 3rd, 2023.
Oh, so we're behind. Well, I'm just
we're not ahead.
We're behind. Let me just bring this up. November's meeting next month is the first open hearing for the open house. And so, just speaking from a little bit of experience, those are going to be really emotional meetings. They're going to be longer meetings. And so I think we should just really think about the additional items we're putting on the agenda for November.
Might I suggest the motion be to table it indefinitely until law and policy decides to bring it forward again?
That was actually my intention, but then I found out it was supposed to be implemented on May 3rd.
So I'm not saying we can't discuss it, I'll trust you, Rich, if you're like, no, we got to do it next month, let's do it. I just think we need to be thoughtful and mindful about that.
And I will say that the implementation of it is required on May 3rd. If we had parents coming to us and requesting, of course, we're going to follow the law, right? That we don't need a policy that mirrors every single law that's in state statute. This is just a policy that helps us to implement those laws. We will always follow state laws. So I hope
My motion still
that's
stands.
clear.
As does my second.
Clark, you are one that asked specifically about what it was that we were talking about. Do you have any thoughts before we take it back, if we are going to table it to law and policy, since you asked?
I guess you've given some color as to what you're contemplating, but until that's more clear, it just doesn't seem effective or efficient here to debate. There's nothing to debate yet. I'd like to see your proposal. I don't have any feedback one way or the other personally. I see both sides of it, of any aspect versus, following the law, and I understand Karen's comment as well. So I'm happy to entertain any additional updates to the language, but without those, I'm not sure there's anything to discuss this evening further.
Anybody else not in law policy that has any thoughts that they want us to take back? Okay. All right, so the motion has been made and a second to table this policy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Awesome. The next policy that we have is also a requirement of recent state statute being passed. This is Educational Language Services Policy. This policy essentially requires the LEA, requires Granite School District, to establish a clear procedure for providing reasonable interpretation and translation services. That's what this policy is intended to provide. If you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to respond.
Any questions?
I might add that this one is whole cloth, brand new policy.
I just wanted to say that I think this policy is great and ready to pass. I feel like this is defining the minimum that we should do for educational language services. And so I just want to make the statement that following this bare minimum is not adequate service to me. It is awesome to make sure that it is protected here, but there is more that we can and should do. And so we should, as a district, we should make an effort to go above and beyond what is in this policy. And I just wanted to make sure that is out there, that I think this should not reflect our culture. It should just reflect compliance.
I have a question in terms of the practicality of this policy. We have 103 languages in the district, we estimate, is my understanding.
That's right.
I'm not as well versed as perhaps I'd like to be in terms of translation software capabilities. Do we have the ability to translate our documents into 103 different languages?
So we do.
Or all 103 of those?
The best thing that I can say about that, Clark, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that the technology, particularly with new AI technology, it is becoming so proficient at translation services that yes, I don't think there's any reason that we can't comply with what's in state statute and what we've got in the policy here. It's not easy, it's time consuming, it takes personnel hours to do those things. But absolutely 100%, there's no reason that we can't do that, and we can't do it in all 103 languages from families that we have in our district. Currently, what we do, just as a side note, for translation, or excuse me, for interpretation, not translation, is we actually have a service that we use that at any time we can call and access a translator or an interpreter for a whole variety of situations. And we've been using that interpretation services for a few years now. But I'm very confident that we can meet the needs of this policy as technology improves. Mhm.
Okay, any others?
I move that we accept as a first reading Article 5C16, Educational Language Services.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 5C16, Educational Language Services. Any further discussion or questions?
As a first reading.
As a first reading, thank you. I got it. All right, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, Doug, second readings.
Okay, moving on to second readings. We had 4 first readings last board meeting, and the first one that I'd like to bring your attention to is salary levels and stipends. You'll recall that as we talked about this policy, this eliminates a duplication in our policies currently, and the policy is intended to make sure that we're placing our employees on salary schedules in an orderly and equitable way. There are no changes that came to this policy from our law and policy discussions or anything else since the last readings. And if you have any further questions about the policy, I'd be happy to respond.
Since the last reading, I did request to have it refer to our handbook. Was that added?
You request, yes, you did, and it does. And I'm sorry, Nicole, thank you for bringing that up. We did make that change.
Okay.
Now I'm trying to find it, I'm sorry.
B2.
Consistent with policies for promotions, no, we don't, it's not included, but it was intended to be, and I apologize for that. We will include that. What Nicole is referring to is that we need to put in the policy a reference to the Human Resources Handbook, and that handbook then provides guidance to Human Resources regarding those steps and lanes. And a reference to the handbook was requested by Nicole, and I thought that we had put it in there, but we had not. So I apologize, and I will make sure that that gets included.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? All right.
And that will be in B4, Nicole.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I make a motion that we approve, what's the number of it?
9A3D.
9A3D.
Salary
Article 9A3D, salary levels and stipends.
As a second.
As a second reading. Thank you. I need to prepare. With the included changes.
With the included changes.
The included changes,
Just for
in case there was something else, I was just ready.
You said before.
Yeah, in B4, correct.
In B4.
And I will second that, but I have just a grammar correction I just noticed.
Please.
Can we add that? In
Yeah.
B1, is there an extra shall? Right now it reads, all other contract employees shall not subject to a professional agreement.
Oh.
Shall be
Yeah,
placed on-
there is. It should say not subject.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know if that changes the motion at all, but I just saw that, so.
So with the changes,
With the changes of board member Kim, I can't think of your last name, I'm too tired. Chandler, board member Chandler.
Do I need to say it? Can we vote on this?
call the question? All right.
Yes.
We've had a motion and a second to approve Article 9A3D, salary level stipends, with the changes included in B4 and B1. And a second on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next policy, thank you. The next policy is Article 2B. This is authority, powers, rights, responsibilities of the Board of Education. What we did is consolidate two policies, and again, we added to this policy for board members appropriate language that is consistent with the statute regarding professional growth and evaluation program that we have in the district. If I'm remembering correctly, Nicole, there were no changes from last month. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? All right.
I move that we accept as a second reading Article 2B, authority, powers, rights, and responsibilities of the Board of Education.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept Article 2B, authority, powers, rights, and responsibilities of the Board of Education as a second and final reading. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Excellent. Article 9A1X, this is reduction in force. This was merely a collapse of three policies that were redundant in our policy, in our board policies. They were redundant only because they applied to different employee groups. Now we've got one policy for all employee groups. If you have any further, there were no changes from last month, and if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to respond.
All right, no questions? Go for it.
I move that we approve as a second reading Article 9A1X, reduction in force.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 9A1X, reduction in force, as a second and final reading. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Great. Our last policy for tonight, Article 8B9. This is prohibition of bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, and retaliation. You'll recall from our discussion last month that this policy, we wanted to clarify the process for managing investigations and review of abusive conduct complaints made by employees regarding patrons and students. We made that fix last month. There are no changes to the policy since then. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Okay, any questions, concerns? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I motion that we approve Article 8B9, prohibition of bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, and retaliation for a second and final reading.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 8B9, prohibition of bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, and retaliation as a second and final reading. Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, board members. We'll make those fixes.
All right. We.
What? Do I want it?
Do you need a Dr. Pepper?
Always. All right, we're going to turn the time over to Rich for our
Doesn't
superintendent
help.
report.
It doesn't help.
Thank you, Board President. Appreciate the work of the board this night and tonight and on all our board meetings, but also in our committees. As you can tell, there's a lot of homework that goes in to each of the committees, and appreciate the diligence that are given to that. It really informs and deepens the discussions, I believe, that we have to the betterment of the district. Just a couple things. One, I got an email from Terry Cooper, principal out at Cottonwood Elementary, and one Mrs. Bench, a kindergarten teacher. And it starts like this from the email. I handed out, and this is the teacher, kindergarten teacher, Ms. Bench, I handed out class of 2036 t-shirts at our SCPs. We give, I mean, to go back, 2036, let that sink in. But we give out these t-shirts, right, that talks about them graduating from the Granite School District to all of our kindergarten teachers. But anyway, it continues. The welcome card from Dr. Nye has his picture on it. I was explaining to a boy who Dr. Nye was. I told him he had a very important job to take care of all of the schools and students in our district and that he works very hard. The boy said, "Is that why he is bald? Grandpa works hard and he is bald." End of email. And so I appreciate the truth spoken of by our children. And it just actually gives me a little bit of hope. If I worked a little less, then there might be some hope the hair grows back. To be determined, highly doubt it. Anyway, I appreciate the good work that occurs in our schools and how our teachers connect with students and our principals as well. With that, we celebrate our employees, and we have opportunities to do so. And we want to do it outside and every day. But certainly take a moment and pause and thank those that occur on some nationally recognized days. And so this last week we had Custodian Appreciation Day. And I just want to express my appreciation to our custodians. As a superintendent, their work is not lost on me. And they're usually one of the very first, right with the principal, to show up at the school to make sure the conditions are just right for our students and our teachers and the rest of our staff to come to that school. And they're always hands on deck. Wherever there's a need, they are there. And they don't hesitate to jump in and help us. And they're just integral to the operations of our schools and what we hope to accomplish as a district. And then secondly, Principal Month is actually considered for October. And so I also express my appreciation to our principals. That is a unique role where they are in the micro and the macro, right? They're in the details of individual lives, children's lives, at the same time navigating at the macro, all the nuances that come with being a principal in a community, abiding by state board rules and state laws that we've talked about and everything that's required of them. And so not an easy job, and I really appreciate our principals, the dedication that they bring to that role and that responsibility every day. And we'll be looking also to recognize them as this is a month to do that. But not just in October, but for all of our employees, recognizing and appreciating the good work that they do. Just one update on kind of a political front. Been working with, having the opportunity to work with some State Board of Education members as well as some state legislators on three things primarily during the interim. A lot, as you know, a lot of the homework that occurs leading up to the legislative session occurs during the interim. And so three specific areas. One is sensitive materials. A bill being passed regarding sensitive materials a couple years ago now, or will be a couple years. But there is, the Education Interim Committee has a committee bill or committee bill file open to address this. And the reason that is there's disparate levels of implementation, as you can imagine, across the state when it comes to some of these issues. And so that role, that responsibility from the legislature and the State Board of Education is to shore up, redefine, provide additional expectations so there is more uniformity in implementation. And that is an area where that occurs. The second is transparency and neutrality in public education. And what does it look like? And so working through some definitions in State Board rule. And the last area of focus over the last several weeks that I've been involved in is the area of the State Board of Education governance and oversight. As you recall, just in Article 10 of the state constitution, the legislature and the State Board of Education are the two constitutional partners for education, with the governance and general oversight of education being left to the State Board of Education. And so we're identifying what opportunities exist for that for our state and from the LEA, or local education agency perspective. And as I think about it, the whole governance structure there really is a three-legged stool, where each leg of that stool is represented by either the legislature as the constitutional partner in education, the State Board of Education as being another leg, and then the third being the LEAs. And so really is identifying what opportunities exist and what needs to improve to make that three-legged stool a little bit more balanced, with people understanding and different entities understanding what their role and responsibility is in each of those spaces. So each of these efforts will yield a couple different things. One, either a new State Board rule or amended State Board rule, or two, legislative action. in terms of bill files and legislation introduced with the legislature. And appreciate the opportunity to engage with them on those types of things that actually in turn affect the day-to-day work that occurs in our classrooms, in our schools. And so with that, Board President, unless there's questions, concludes my report.
No questions, but I think we need to have trading cards made for you.
I second that.
It would be the best. The kids will. We're going to do all the superintendency trading cards. Okay. Clark, we're going to start with you for board reports.
I'll just say that myself and others, including Nicole and Karen, are actively involved in the audit committee, and Chris and Connie and I are actively involved in the budget committee. And I think it's perhaps helpful for our patrons to know that we have those committees, as Rich alluded to, and that we're actively involved. Some of us have been here since quite early today working in those committees. In various capacities and dealing with a variety of issues that, while not necessarily helpful to get into the details this evening, there are important oversights and efforts being taken constantly to ensure the fiscal integrity of our school district. Thanks.
Karen?
Just one thing, I sit on the benefits committee and it is open enrollment right now. And so employees, if you're listening, make sure there are open enrollment fairs. There's people you can call. And I just want to mention the hard work that goes in on the benefits committee, because this is a huge piece of our recruitment and retention tool. It was mentioned earlier today in the staffing report that and I want people to understand that the premium our employees pay for like a family plan is only 8% of the cost, and the district pays for 92%. So, which is pretty phenomenal that a family premium can be under $300 for some pretty decent coverage. Even our out-of-pocket maxes and deductibles, and those are very competitive compared to surrounding districts. So, just want you to know that good things are going in on the benefits committee, and a lot of hard work is put into trying to take care of the compensation, not only salary, but the benefit side of the compensation package for our employees.
Thanks, Karen. Chris?
I just have a quick thank you, Clark, for mentioning the budget committee. We are learning a lot about the intricacies and many layers of finances that we look at in every aspect of school, and I'm learning a lot, and so we will pass that on when we get board level appropriate progress. But if you have questions in the meantime about things, please funnel them to us, because Todd, our expert, is so great at finding answers for us. I wanted to mention that when I was at the Inclusion Day at Hunter High, they did mention that they have their Finding Nemo play coming up. That's the unified, and it's just November 30th and December 1st. They want the board to know that we are invited. They'd love to have us there. And it's going to be Finding Nemo, so it should be excellent. And thank you to Ben and Steve for the PAC meeting dates. Did you guys all get PAC updated? If you want to come to any of the community council meetings, or I think we have one more Matheson Junior open house. Make sure you get those from Steve. So
I was just going to say, I don't think those have been sent out by calendar invite for those particular meetings. But
I think you need to request them if you're out of.
But I think Ben and Darla were going to do so.
Were they? So I've received them. If you have not, would you get with them and make sure you get invited to those? There's quite a few coming up, so to put on your calendars. And then the last one is just District Community Council. First meeting is October 17th at Kennedy Junior High, 6 p.m. Kennedy Junior.
I'll just make a request that any and all of those be sent out by calendar invite to the entire board.
Yeah. So District Community Council is, we usually only do 3.
Are you talking about PAC or District Community Council?
PAC, but I would like to be aware of District Community Council meeting by way of a calendar invite. That doesn't mean that I expect to attend, but I think it's helpful for board members to know of the meeting's event, so to speak.
Well, and as you're at your schools, you can remind them that District Community.
Correct.
That's what that's actually perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
I serve on the County Parks and Recreation as the advisory board for that. And so it's by law that they have the school boards on that committee, but they tell us as to what, of course, they're doing. So they opened the trail at Harriman. I can't remember the trail name. So they don't do too much within our district. Right now, they're focused a lot in the Harriman and the West Mountains. And they've done a lot in the Draper area. So it's way interesting, and I'd like to get to know the people that are there, but we're not too involved, other than our facilities are used by the county rec for their basketball and soccer. So their units are just a beginning. They're the beginning part, and then they go on to club sports. So it's interesting. And then I'm on the financial one, and I enjoy that because we get to learn the details of how the district is run and the rules that are behind what happens. There's a lot to it. So anyway.
Thanks. Kim?
Don't really have anything else to add besides what's already been shared. District Community Council coming up, and you see the fruits of our lawn policy meetings every month. So nothing more to add than that.
I'd also love to see the agendas of those district community council, because then when I'm in schools, I can say, hey, this is what they're going to be talking about, and I think it gets people to come.
I'm hopeful that as we have this new software that we're going to be using, that all of those agendas will be on there. But yes, that's a very valid point.
I don't mean to brag, but I came with handouts. And I would like that to go on the record, please. Please take one and pass it down. And you will also get one of the, oh, wait, I need one. And we'll also get one, you'll get this digitally as well. But at the last, I'm the Utah School Board Association representative for our school district. And at our last, we had a thing where our board was invited to our regional meeting. And while we were at the regional meeting, they asked us those of us who were there, to create some goals surrounding our engagement of legislators before, this is ripped, which shows you, demonstrates that this is not anything official. That's how you know it's not an official type thing. It's just, we sat and chatted. And we came up with these 6 goals that they asked us to come up with some goals of like how we were going to engage our legislators. And let me just say that our district makes a huge effort to engage legislators. And the 6 things that I'm about to say are the ways that we want to stretch. They do not represent the effort that is put into the legislature. And you notice in parentheses, we've assigned these to people, and 3 of them have Ben's name on it, and he's not here, so that's good. He doesn't know about these yet. But number 3, so the 3 with Ben's name on it are about things that, for the public who do not read this. Keep legislators involved by sending them our legislative tracker. Engage in stronger communication with our legislators about activities at the schools, including issues that they might hear about, for example, a lockdown or something like that. And invite principals to invite their local representatives to activities so that they'll be in our schools. We'll also ask, Nicole has agreed that she will talk with our teachers' unions about how to help our teachers know better how to talk to legislators. And Rich and Todd are going to have committed to engaging with other key legislators who do not represent our district about issues that represent us, that affect us. Number 3 is the issue that I bring to you tonight. There was a discussion about how impactful it is when the person who lives and who lives in the same area as the representative contacts the representative. And so we on our school board all have different levels of free time, if I may say it that way. If you feel so inclined that you would be willing to, we have the USBA has asked us, this is the funding our priorities for the legislative session. What we as a USBA body, as all the school boards of the state of Utah and superintendents and business administrators have agreed, these are the things that we need in school, in education. And we want to get these into our legislators' hands along with our Utah School Board Association strategic plan. We want them, legislators to understand better who we are so that we can become a more powerful advocate. We can be people that our legislators rely on when they don't know who to vote for, what to vote for. And so what I'm asking is for people to be willing to try to, before the end of the fall here, have a conversation. We want to have a conversation with each of our legislators. Best would be meeting a legislator in the school, walking through the school, getting them some pictures and chatting about this. Second best would be going for a walk or taking a phone call, sending an email. These are in order of best words. Sending an email, leaving a voicemail, sending this in the post mail, right? What I'm asking for is if you would be willing to commit to making sure these get in our legislators' hands. I have a list here that we can talk, you can come to me afterwards. These are all of our senators and representatives and their phone numbers, emails, addresses. And then here, same legislators, how they voted on education issues last session, so that you have something to talk about, So if you'll come up to me after.
Do you have copies of those, Julie? Do you have copies you can email us?
I have copies to email you, but it's just in a really complicated Excel file. I can work it out. But yes, I plan on sending this also, but what I would like to know is, the reason I brought these in paper is because I would like you to say, Julie, I'm going to do these legislators. And so I would like to know who is planning on what. You're committing. I'm holding you accountable for this. Okay, so come talk to me after.
Happy to do so, notwithstanding, will you please send all of those documentations,
It will all
including the
be
really
sent.
complicated spreadsheets, to us electronically?
Do you want to see the complex ones?
Yes.
Clark is
Complex
really
parts?
good at complex
Yeah, I'll take
spreadsheets.
it. But everything, the PDFs of the slip
And this
sheets
I have as
and the
PDF.
spreadsheets,
Yeah,
please.
I plan on all of that.
I don't think we
Thank you.
got the strategic plan as a PDF, right?
But I have one.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Julie. Will you guys please, just from my report, NSBA, we do have dates for that, which is April 6th through 8th. It is in New Orleans. So if you can please check those dates now so that it's on your calendar and see if you're available. Our discount for early registration is December. So Stacy will be asking. December 8th. So we need to know before the end of November if you are available or not. So please put that on your calendars and check and see if that's available. Board certification, what is it? What's the official term? Board.
It's an MBA.
Master board is due by December 1st, from what I understand, right? So if anybody is interested in submitting, we worked on that a little bit on our retreat. For those of you who are interested, District Community Council, I will tell you what's on the agenda right now. It is our mission and vision. I'm going to take a presentation to them and we're going to talk about it and get some feedback from the community on that. Again, it is our mission and vision, so it will be what we own and what we decide, but I think it is valuable feedback to get from our community, and so we are going to take it to the District Community Council.
What's the date again?
It is October 17th. So please pass that on to your community councils. I am going to be getting, this is not to be like, Mom, I'm keeping track of you, but I am going to be able to receive and see a report on the book committee as far as our submitted books. We'd like to get that going a little bit faster, just to see who maybe we could use an extra person or two in their area. If you are struggling to find somebody, please let us know, or reach out to myself or Rick or, oh my gosh. Chris, thank you. Chris Larson. And let's get that going. I myself was lacking in that, and so I submitted another 5 names this week. So hopefully we can get some of those books read and get that list knocked out. So please get those in. And
Do you know how many more they're looking for?
Chris asked for 2 or 3 more names.
2 or 3?
So I think each. So I was an overachiever and sent in 5 and have 2 more. But
So we each need to send him 3 more names?
2 to 3 more names if possible. Your area is doing pretty good.
Okay, I'm gonna not.
So, but everybody else's is a little bit, some are stronger than others. So if we can just get a couple more names, that would be great. And with that, unless we have trading
Could you
cards
just let
that we
us,
have to.
would you, when you send that out, will you let us know if our area has some that are, like sometimes we submit a name, we don't know if they're actually participating in it?
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Mission and vision. I heard from almost everybody about the vision, and I did get them, and I have compiled most of them. I just need to finish putting Julie's in, because I think she's the last one that I heard from. If you have anything, then please submit it. I will send that out to you hopefully tomorrow, now that I have everybody's thoughts on that, and then you guys can kind of, we'll process it and see where we're at on that. So, all right, and that's all for me. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Jared.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to